Hello and welcome to yet another video, and in this video I would like to talk about this Commlite Canon EF to EOS M mount. Well, it also takes EFS actually, and despite the price tag, this is actually not one of those dummy adapters. This is actually an electronical adapter. That means it has electronic inside where it helps to transmit like communication between the lens and the actual camera. So the camera knows how to control the aperture, the focus, and what have you. And it's not only gonna work with the older EOS M models, but also gonna work with the EOS M, like the newer EOS M, like the M50 with dual pixel sensor. And this is not a paid video or anything. They just sent me this for review, and after like a week and a half of testing this, I think I know this adapter very well already to make a review, because it's actually only an adapter and I've been testing it out with my other lenses. And because EOS M camera is not my main camera, I actually have to adapt more lenses, so I think I put it through like a really good use already. I mainly shoot at night and some portraits on like the streets and markets, things like that. So I think it's also a really good test to put it through, because well, at night it also, not only that the camera needs to read the focus, but also needs to transfer the information. So it also was a really good test to test the speed in which it could transmit the communication between the camera and the lens. And yeah, but first I would like to talk about the photography side, and then the videography side, and then to the actual ergonomics of this adapter. Because well, I think like if you want like one simple answer whether or not you should get it and if it's good, I would say right now that it's actually really good, and it is actually the alternative to the Canon adapter, which costs like over 120 euros, depending on where and when. By when I mean which time of the year you buy it. Obviously there will be time where they will give you promotion where you buy one of their EOS M cameras and then it comes with the adapter already, or if you live in like Eastern Europe, it's going to be a little bit cheaper than Western Europe, for that matter. But yeah, but I didn't really test like the EFS lens that much, but it actually works. But I think if it's gonna work with the EF lenses, it should also work perfectly fine with EFS lenses. I mean, I did try it out, but because the only EFS lens I have is the 10 to 18 millimeter, and I kind of have an ultra wide on my camera already, the EOS M50. I have the 11 to 22, so I didn't see the need to put a 10 millimeter on it, and that 1 millimeter can make a difference at some point, but due to portability reasons, it's just defeat the whole purpose of having a mirrorless and that wide angle lens already. But I do mount lenses that I don't have for my EOS M cameras, so such as the 50mm, the 85mm 1.2. So that was actually also really hard test for the camera, because well, not only the camera but the actual adapter as well, because it's f1.2 and the camera will need to constantly, like with that dual pixel AF, it needs to constantly communicate through that adapter, and making sure that the adapter keeps up with the speed of changing field of focus, because 1.2 is really thin. Then I also used the 70 to 200, which to be honest, that was a pretty boring test, because it's f4. You don't really have a lot of plane of focus to play with. I mean, sure, you zoom into 200 millimeters and you get pretty shallow depth of field as well at f4, but I'm going to be focusing more on these two lenses because, well, I use them the most, and it's also the toughest in my opinion, because, well, 1.8 and 1.2, and they're not exactly wide. So yeah, unless if you're shooting like landscapes, then obviously it doesn't take that long to focus because of the plane focus field. In photography, so I found it like it was not at all tricky. So I went to the market. I also photograph at night using these thin shallow depth of field lenses using this adapter, and it focused pretty fast actually. So in photography, I didn't really encounter any like difficulties because, well, it communicated as it should be, unlike some other cheap Chinese converter adapters where sometimes the cameras just gets a little bit confused, or the lens actually, I'm not sure, but this seems to work like the actual adapter from Canon, in the way that whatever the lens tells it to do, it actually does, or actually wherever I point the autofocusing points to and where it should be focusing on, it actually focuses on the object really quickly, as if like you were working with the native EF M lenses on the EOS M body. So that was actually really, really nice. And yeah, so the speed, there was practically no noticeable speed drop when using out there in the field. In photography though, it's not a bad thing. Like what I figured is that with some adapters, like the cheap Chinese adapters, as well as some lenses, when you have dual pixel AF on, because it's constantly focusing or trying to find focus, making sure that the square that it should be in focus should actually be in focus, so it's always running. And some adapters would actually kind of cut that, and then like after a while, some adapters works after like cuts after like a few minutes. Some adapters will just cut right after 10 or 15 seconds, whereas this adapter works a lot like the Canon adapter, where it just constantly work. And I really like that about this adapter, because I mean, if I'm going to be using with the dual pixel AF, then I also want the dual pixel AF to actually also work through the adapter. You know, that's the point of dual pixel AF, is that everything should still be in focus. Well, the point of focus should remain in focus, not stop working. But yeah, so it's nice to know that this adapter actually keeps it running. And yeah, I'll show you some sample shots that I actually did in this room, not only from outside, but also in this room. I think it's more controlled in this room. I went outside to test, obviously, just for like how it's gonna work like in the real world, but I also wanted to do some indoor testing to demonstrate to you guys how good and reliable this adapter actually is. It's actually way more reliable than I thought, to be frank with you, because there are some other Chinese adapters as well that, as I mentioned earlier, aren't really reliable, and it just cuts certain features out. And anyway, but before mounting this adapter, you have to know that it can look a little bit ridiculous when you mount like a 7200 or the 85 on an EOS M body, because I mean, take a look. I mean, you're essentially mounting this. This looks fine on my 5D Mark III, but it looks ridiculous on my EOS M 50. Yeah. It's not really focusing, but hey. Yeah, it just looks absolutely ridiculous. Like, if you look at it from the front, it barely, like, you barely see the actual camera. And I'm sure if the camera is black, and if you just hold the grip like this, the camera is barely noticeable by other people. Other people will just see the, whoa, the actual lens. And yeah, it just, it's a bit weird. And yeah, now moving on to the ergonomics of this this adapter. It is actually really well built. It is made out of metal. Well, it has metal mount actually, and I'm actually not sure what this is, if it's metal or if it's really good quality plastic, because nowadays we can make good quality plastic that actually feels like metal. I'm actually not sure, but the mounts are definitely metal, which is really nice, and there's heavy weight. The one down thing about this ergonomics of this adapter is actually this tripod holder or tripod foot where it actually wobbles a little bit. If you mount something like even the 50 1.8 and if you put this on the tripod, this actually wobbles a little bit. But obviously if you have something like the 70-200, there's its own tripod foot or tripod base or however you call it, and you can just mount using this tripod foot, so it's okay. But yeah, just keep in mind that if you're doing any long exposure or taking some sort of creative pictures in the studio or indoors where your lenses are like this big, and if you need to mount it on the tripod using the tripod foot, well, in the case of the 85, this is actually even deeper than the actual foot, so there's no chance for that. But on something like the 50 1.8, where it's around this size anyway, it will be very shaky. But yeah, but the overall conclusion of this adapter is that I do highly recommend this adapter. It's a very, very nice adapter, and it works really reliably, at least for the past weeks that I've received and been testing it out. And I didn't do any unboxing videos, sorry about that, but it came in a pretty nice box that is really, really well protected, and yeah, you can't go wrong. And for like between 40 to 60 euros, depending on where you buy it here in Northern Europe, it's a really, really nice option. And yeah, it's like at most half of the price of the Canon offering, and cheapest is 60% cheaper than Canon's offering, 60 to 65%. But yeah. Anyway, yeah, that's it. I'm gonna show some sample images, of course, that was taken with this lens and this adapter using this camera and that camera, and some of them are from this camera, the EOS M10, and that's a pretty old camera at this point. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, please leave them down below. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching and have fun shooting. Bye!